Today I'm going to show you 5 more tips to speed up your editing workflow in Lightroom. Earlier in the year, I made a video on 5 tips to speed up your Lightroom workflow, so I decided to make another of these videos covering 5 different things to speed you up even more. If you haven't seen that one yet, click on the eye in the corner or the link in the description. That'll take you to that earlier video. Editing is one of those things that can take ages, and if you procrastinate or if you tweak and tune each image for hours, it can become a really arduous task. But it doesn't have to be. If you use any one or all of these tips, you'll become a much quicker, more efficient editor. Instead of flicking through your images on your camera and deleting the bad ones there, use a card reader, download them to an external hard drive or the hard drive on your computer, and then put them into a really nicely structured filing system. If you get into this habit and do it a lot, not only will you speed up your workflow, but you'll be less prone to losing your photos. With the naming of the main folder, I'll have the date reversed and then I'll have a small description. So for instance, if I was saving a set of images that I'd taken today, I would write down 2019, it's October, so I'd then have number 10 and it's the 15th. I'd then have the number 15. So I'd started off with 2019-1015. Then I'd have a short description describing what I'd been photographing that day. Then when it comes to finding the images, or if your Lightroom catalog or your editing software becomes detached from these files, you can find them easily. One great thing I've found with putting this small description in the folder title is that you don't have to rename every single image. You just rename the folder. Then as you look through these folders, they will always stack in chronological order. Now, if you want to be really precise when you're building your libraries in Lightroom, you can use keywords. And even though they are a great way of cataloging your images, I find that keywords really slow down and make the editing process a little bit arduous. So what I do instead is create catalogs that mirror the folders on my hard drives. So I have that date and small description in the folders in my catalogs. Then once again, if my images become detached from Lightroom or whatever editing software I'm using, I know quickly which folder to look for. Also, if you have that short description on your catalog, as you did on your folder and your hard drive, again, these will jog your memory and you'll be able to quickly find the image that you're looking for. The star rating in Lightroom is one of the features I use heavily every single time I bring images into Lightroom. What I will do is before I edit any of my images or make any kind of changes, I will quickly scrub through all of my images, giving them a rating on how I think they look. If they don't look any good, they don't get a star rating. If they look good, I'll give them 2 stars. And if they look really good and really stand out, I'll give them 3 stars. By doing this, I can very quickly go through thousands of images and narrow them down to a few hundred images. And I can do this in a very short amount of time. So in narrowing down the amount of images you have to edit, you will really speed up your workflow. Once I've gone through and I've rated them 2 stars, I'll select 2 stars and then I'll go through these again, selecting the ones that I think are 3 stars. Once I get to 3 stars, then I'll start editing. And this means I can take thousands of images, but then I'll only have a few hundred images to edit. Now, once again, if you're a hobby photographer, you may think this is a ludicrous amount of images. But when you're on a photo shoot, and especially a sports event, it's amazing how quickly you'll rack up a lot of images. But in working your way through in this star system, you can pick out the best images and then only edit those images. What I sometimes find is when I'm editing, I'll start working my way through my images, but then I'll get stuck on one of those images and I'll spend a long time just on that one image. This is great, but it's not a very efficient way to spend your time when you're editing, especially when you're on a deadline or you don't have much time to edit all of your images. So what I try and do is only spend a few minutes on each photo when I first edit those images. I'll make a few changes, I'll then leave them and then come back to them at a later date and make some more changes then if necessary. in spending less time and then coming back to them, you'll find you'll have a fresh set of eyes on them, and you may see some problems or solutions to these problems that you may not have seen the first time you started editing your images. The main thing is not to fret over any one single image. If you're on a deadline and you can't quite seem to get the image looking how you want it, leave it. Keep editing the rest of your images and then come back to it at the end. This will normally help, and in having this mentality, it'll normally speed up your editing workflow. And the last tip is just to build up a routine by getting out there, taking photos, bringing them back and editing them on a regular basis. If you do this, you'll get better and you'll become more efficient in the editing process. By building a routine of backing up your images, importing your images, correcting for the lenses, changing the basics, doing any local adjustments, refining your sharpening and your noise reduction, and then exporting your images, you'll build up this routine, and the more you do it, the faster you'll become. And that's about it. There are many different ways to become more efficient at editing, but if you take any one of these on board, or all 5 of them on board, your editing workflow will become more efficient and more organized, and you'll start to enjoy it a lot more and want to do it a lot more. Now, have you got any other ways that you speed up your editing workflow? If you do, let me know in the comments below. It'll be great to know how you guys are increasing the efficiency of your editing workflow. As always, if you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. And for weekly tutorials, hints and tips in photography and videography, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll see you next time.